This is a call for vengeance. Welcome to today's show. Keep an eye on this story. And again, you can see how they plant seeds in people's minds with headlines like this. We all know about what's going on at the Texas border. We all know how 25 states are now siding against the federal government with the state of Texas. And of course, everyone conveniently is a conservative state. Okay, this is done by design. Ironically, Vermont, which has a conservative governor, is not siding with those states. And that obviously plays into the whole way that this is going to be mapped out into territories. But this headline, a convoy calling themselves, quote, God's Army, plans to head to the Texas border to stop migrants from entering the U.S. There are a lot of narratives in this that everyone needs to pay attention to because they have been subtly over the years, which I've been pointing out and exposing over the years, turning Christians into villains. They have been putting this in all sorts of programming that not just Christians being bigots, but Christians being dangerous. There's a new image of what Christians are in today's society, and that ties in to the psyop that they are putting on and orchestrating with Q and with the alt-extreme right. So the convoys calling themselves God's Army. In other words, the CIA is calling them God's Army because that's probably what this is a branch of. Not probably, it is, because they always are. Doesn't mean organically that people are not going to get involved in this. I talked about the trucker convoy in Canada. It's very important to pay attention to that when it comes to this. Because with the trucker convoy, that did not organically start. The government started that as well. Civilians organically got involved behind the trucker movement, which is how they do all of these operations. The government starts the operations, okay? They make it known that this is going to occur. They get people involved. They get into people's communities and tell them about it. And then regular civilians join in. They did the same thing on the 6th of January. Okay, that was not an organic movement. The government started that. There were civilians there that didn't have a clue about what was going to go down and what actually happened. So this is the same exact thing that we saw in Canada, in a sense, here in America. The difference is that this is going to be an armed standoff, okay? But one of the narratives everyone needs to keep an eye on is these civilians who go down there being identified as extremists, and let's see if the government goes as far as to even freezing their bank accounts. Okay, arresting these civilians, right? Changing what the laws are that we know of, right? Because these civilians are saying that the tactics are domestic internal defense. This is states defending themselves against invasions. And the federal government will likely arrest these people, not just to send a message, to start showing you that there's going to be two separate governments running in this country. That's what this is about. So the convoy is heading to the southern border to stop migrants from entering the U.S. The group's leader described their tactics as domestic internal defense. It is not clear what the group plans to do once they reach the border. A convoy of hundreds of people plan to head to the Texas border to stop the migrants crossing into the country from Mexico. Again, they will likely tie this into something with Donald Trump as well. They will probably say that Donald Trump, and maybe he even did, I don't know what he's tweeting about 24/7, but we do know that he obviously sided with Texas because all the conservatives are going to side with Texas. This is strategically being done by design. This is how it's scripted. And they'll probably say that Trump is causing some type of, not an insurrection, but Trump is causing, some type of an uprising at the border, crimes being committed, genocide, murder, et cetera, because that's part of, he's the person who is really the face of this new government that they're trying to form, these two separate governments, right? This conservative side and this liberal side. Trump's the face of it. So a convoy of hundreds of people are heading to the Texas border. The group is called Take Our Border Back. It's organizing on Telegram and now has more than 1,600 followers. One of the group's organizers described them as God's Army in a planning call. He said, "This is biblical, monumental moment that's been put together by God." And of course, this is the narrative that they're starting to use, where they're using a lot of these MAGA plants or these Q plants, which are government agents, and they're putting quotes out there about Trump being chosen by God. And we see how a lot of quote unquote truthers have gone with that narrative that he's a prophet chosen by God, right? So that he could say and do whatever he wants, and he's doing it for God, he's with God. Them even saying this is biblical is pretty unbelievable, right? I mean, Yeah, it's biblical to the sense where God says, "My people, my people perish for a lack of knowledge." I mean, that's biblical because most of these people don't even realize that they're in psyops. They actually think that this stuff, they don't realize if they pulled themselves back, they would see that the whole thing is a giant simulation that's manipulating people one way or the other. Goes on to say, we are besieged on all sides by dark forces of evil. And again, those are other things they try to use. Dark forces, evil, Satan, all truths, of course. But they use it because they're trying to plant seeds in the heads of people that Christians are dangerous, Christians are extremists, people who talk like this, who talk about dark forces, who say that God has sent them to do this are dangerous, and eventually they'll tie it into mental health as well. That's where we're headed towards. Quote, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. It is time for the remnant to rise." This is from this militant group. And again, there's going to be a lot of rules and laws put in place, maybe as a result of what they plan on doing at the border. Okay, because that's a lot of the theme here, right? They're called by God to go to the border. They're all armed to go to the border. Okay, they're all starting a convoy at the border. They say, we don't know what we're going to end up doing, but we are besieged on all sides by dark forces. And then he twists scripture by saying, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God," but then says it's time for the remnant to rise. All right? Pete Chambers, the lieutenant colonel organizing the group, has claimed he was a Green Beret. He explained the group's plans while speaking to Alex Jones on InfoWars show on Thursday. Again, a lot of people have a tough time with Alex Jones, especially newbies, or as my friend used to call them, baby truthers. Okay, newbies, people who are new to this don't understand COINTELPRO. They think that people like us are yelling about Alex Jones because we're jealous of Alex Jones and how popular he is and how much success Alex Jones has or how much money he has. Couldn't be further from the truth. Alex Jones was planted in this movement. It's been proven 1,000 times over. He replaced Bill Cooper when Bill Cooper was taken out. Bill Cooper was even warning against Alex Jones. If you watch Alex Jones and what he was saying about the 11th day of September at the time, he obviously flipped his narrative. He was blaming the right people, and then, of course, bought and paid for blaming the wrong people. Alex Jones, the poster boy for what they want, which is, the whole thing with the hook at Sandy. What he's doing is not arguing in court about what he said. He's saying he just said it for clicks and whatever else. And he backed down from the entire narrative, and then he lost billions of dollars, which of course he didn't really lose, or he was sued for $1 billion. And this was a scare tactic, a COINTELPRO classic scare tactic to make people stop speaking truth on the internet because of fear that they go to court and end up losing all their money and going to jail and all these other things, right? So anyway, there's so much stuff on Jones. And of course, I've even just recently did the fake walkthrough of Bohemian Grove, where we all know that Jones was allowed into Bohemian Grove, allowed to film it, and allowed to release it on DVD. It would have been whacked, okay? It wouldn't even be a debate about him going in there. Nobody's getting in there and doing that unless they're one of them. But if people out there, again, my point being, they love to believe, Alex Jones is not one of them because he's entertaining. I understand it. He tickles the ears. It's the same thing with the Trump followers. They don't realize that they're in the PSYOP. Okay, they don't understand COINTELPRO, which I've broken down in plenty of videos. So it's not a coincidence that this group got onto InfoWars with just 1,000 members. Okay, I've had 500,000 people, 100,000 views per video. That's not me saying it to brag. My point is, nobody like Alex Jones has ever reached out to someone like me to have them on their show, et cetera, because it's controlled. It's government operated. They let agents work with agents. And they herd you in the way that they want to herd you in. So, of course, the guy was on Alex Jones to promote it because then they could say, look, more Alex Jones crazy conspiracy nuts, Christians going to the border armed, saying God sent them to the border to kill people, blah, 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 blah. More division, more, ways to suppress Christian speech. That's what it's headed towards. So this guy goes on to say on Alex Jones, he says, quote, "That's what Green Berets do. Unconventional warfare is our bread and butter. Now we're doing domestic internal defense. What gets us to the enemy quickly is to find, fix, and finish, exploit, analyze, and disseminate," Chambers said, referring to a military process. That's what we did in Syria when we took out ISIS really quick. Of course, there's more agent talk for you there. He said the group would, ISIS, which is funded by the CIA, he said the group would work with sympathetic members of law enforcement who he described as constitutionally sound, of course. And again, this is the thing with Abbott. Everybody's jumping on the Abbott bandwagon like they did with DeSantis and Disney, etc. Abbott is a World Economic Forum stooge, as I've shown you many times over the years. Okay, he pretends and plays the role of Texas first, nationalist, Christian, blah, blah, blah. He's doing this right now because this was the timing that, why didn't he do this 3 years ago when this started, right? Oh, now all of a sudden it's dangerous? Because it didn't fit into the calendar and it didn't fit in with building up this into people's mind and making people angry for 3 years straight with nothing being done and getting it so it's common talk and common fodder for people to just go, do you hear the border? The border's crazy. What's going on with the border? Oh, now he's finally doing something because we're in 2024. We know that there's a fake election, so there's a lot of stuff at play. So the convoy that they are starting is due to begin on Monday, okay, starting at Virginia Beach, Virginia, and 3 rallies will be held in San Ysidro, California, Yuma, Arizona, Eagle Pass. The group has subgroups on Telegram for drivers and riders in those 3 states to coordinate rides. And again, this is how they get civilians on board. When I talk about this with fake riots, etc., like the stuff we saw with George Floyd, all that stuff, okay, they start these things as movements people get on board. Black Lives Matter is obviously a government movement. Real civilians ended up supporting it, getting psyoped into it, showing up at these events. Same with the convoy. It's a perfect way for them to do it, right? They don't go right down to Texas directly. They say, we're starting the convoy here so that during this entire route, other people along that route who will then look up, where's the route going through? I'm in Arizona, will get on board and show up for this massive false flag that they probably have planned. It's very likely there'll be a false flag here. I'd be very surprised if there isn't. At the very least, with the convoy, and I'm not saying a false flag like there's going to be a huge shootout at the OK Corral, but I'm saying that there's probably going to be stuff with bank accounts, arrests. I'm sure a false flag may be an explosion at the border, some type of nonsense that's completely planned that'll bring about more laws, more restrictions, more civil unrest. So this goes on to say that the website describes the event as, quote, a peaceful assembly, inviting all law-abiding, freedom-loving Americans. And of course, this is what they do to one another with the left-right, with the peaceful assembly, right? Democrats say that they're doing peaceful assembly. Then we see like the George Floyd riot. So it gets conservatives all riled up. They're like, they claim to be peaceful, but look what they're doing. They're lighting buildings on fire. And then like the January 6th, they go, oh, Trump said a peaceful protest. And then, they show you what happened there, even though I always thought it was one of the funnier psyops. It looked so fictional, well, of course it was fiction, but so G-rated. It was just people climbing up buildings that they made it sound like, that wasn't peaceful, that was an insurrection. So they love using peaceful assembly and pointing the finger at each other. And when you hear peaceful assembly, you know that some type of false flag is in the future, because then everybody points at the other side and goes, this is to them, this is peace, this is peaceful assembly, they all have guns, blah, 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 right? So Wired published, this is from Business Insider, but they say Wired published an article describing the group as an armed convoy, after which the group wrote on Telegram, we are not making a call to arms, a call to engage with anyone crossing the border. We are here to peacefully protest under our First Amendment right to write and pray. The group said that one of their goals is to stop illegal immigration immediately and close the border. It is not clear how the group plans to confront the migrants at the border to stop them from entering. National Guard troops in Texas are in a standoff with the federal government. Chambers described those troops as holding the line and said his convoy, he's talking about the Texas troop, who has the razor wire fencing ordeal going up. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it. So they're saying that this convoy would be about 30 miles away. Then you have Republicans who are saying that they support the convoy. This is a mirror image of the stuff in Canada. Okay, so don't be surprised if you see a mirror image of rules being put in place, bank accounts being frozen, the same type of stuff with government overreach. Now, they're doing this by design, not just because they're tired. We already know that they're psychopathical tyrants, but they're doing this because this is another one of the tactics that they're going to use to get people into red states and blue states. When they continue to do this to conservatives like they do to us, who we're not conservatives in the sense of believing in Republicans, but people like us who speak the same way, who have the same religious beliefs, okay, we see how they censor our speech, right? We see the stuff done to us, okay, where the other side could do whatever they want. So if the government continues to act like this, freeze bank accounts, this is another way that they can herd people into conservative states by saying the federal government has gone rogue, they're tyrants, we don't want to be a part of them, they're freezing bank accounts, they have no right to do that. And this will get people to go, you know what, I'm done with Democrats, I'm done with Democratic states. On the flip side, when the Democrats see this stuff, they are not going to want, the same way that none of us want to be around insane people who cross-dress and want to go to libraries and hang out with your kids, they do the same thing the other way, because most conservatives don't realize how the narrative, they spin this narrative both ways. All the Democrats are at a point where they don't want to be in the same society as Christians. They don't want to be around Christians anymore, just like we don't want to be around insane, masked up people. And this is done by design. That's why I try to break people away from it. But we're all feeling it. I mean, everybody out there is frustrated with the people that we're among. And they're only like that because of the mainstream media influence, the behavioral influence. That's why they're like that. That's why I still have remorse for these people, because they're under such mind control. But they have such narcissism built up in them because of how the media has, worked for the last 20 years with social media, etc. These people have built up walls and all this other stuff inside them. It's hard to break them down to make them normal again. So they think all these things that they're saying and doing are who they really are, but they're not. They're formulated. They're manufactured. So this is a big thing to keep an eye out on, okay? Again, the title of the article is "A Convoy Claiming Themselves God's Army Planning to Head to the Texas Border to Stop Migrants from Entering the U.S." And the trigger words we hear are words like convoy. Pay attention to it. There's a lot more coming with this, with the standoff between the state and the federal government. I've talked about it for years, and we're getting there. It's not happening tomorrow, but we're getting there. Little by little, this is where the narrative continues to go. And don't forget all the other variables that tie into civil division, civil unrest, and civil, going into blue and red states. Mandates that will be the next wave. When mandates are put in certain states for people to literally put something inside of themselves to kill them, that'll kill them, people will have no choice but to go into red states to avoid those types of things. So there's a lot that's going to tie in, but they're going to get what they want in the end, unless people like us infiltrate blue states, but it's going to be nearly impossible with the technology. They're going to make it impossible to be an infiltrator. So I know it sounds crazy and off topic as I continue on, especially if you're new to all of it. Okay, but this is what we're headed towards. And I've been talking about it for a long period of time, and people are starting to see it, but a lot of people are just falling into the trap they want them to fall into, okay, which is hating the opposite political party, and then, not wanting to live among them. They don't realize that it's being done by design. They think that it's just like, oh, these people are, they're under mind control, just like conservatives are under mind control too, to think, to not even realize that Donald Trump is one of them. It's utter insanity that they don't. So remember with this story, God's army, how God is leading them there. God has called upon them to go there, right? This is very similar to the Trump narrative and the thing they try to tie into conspiracy theorists. People like me, they try to lump me in, right? We're besieged on all sides by dark, evil forces. That's a point of finger at all of us who constantly talk about how evil and wicked world communism is, etc. Oh, it's just some crazy Christian mumbo jumbo, dark forces of evil, right? And then them going on to say, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. It's time for the remnant to rise. If you can't see and read between the lines, you're not paying attention. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.